human perspective.
Welcome to Unbiased and on the Fence. I'm Shane, and I'm joined by Jen. Jen's Gems, formerly known as Jen's Gems on YouTube, but through two channels, right? So it's so good to
Yeah.
chat with you, Jen. Most
Um,
people are going to remember you. Most of the people that's been with me since the beginning are going to definitely remember you being on 2017, 2018. So it's been 7 years, and you've been through
right,
a whole bunch,
right.
you know. But you,
So good. Always good to be with you. Just always good to be with you. And I share this with you every once in a while, but I it's still emotional for me when I first awoke. I became aware, but was in denial. But then when I finally realized that reality can change, you were the only one, Shane, who see, I get emotional. I'm getting choked up. You were the only one who was gentle and calm and welcoming, and you were going through it too. So we're all just kind of trauma drama bonded. So our hearts are just forever tethered, and I really thank you for being a warm, welcoming place.
Oh, I'm happy to be that person, and
Yeah.
it's really important in the very beginning when your whole world's getting turned upside down. So I was just as thankful for everyone there with me to give me feedback and to tell me I'm not crazy too, and it's just
Right.
so helpful to see have other people that seem sane, just like you feel
Right.
sane, but this world, is starting to get really crazy, and then you have other sane people saying we see it too. It's just such a big
Right.
help. So that's actually why we're here, because we know a lot of people are just waking up to this Mandela effect, and it can really, you
Mhm.
can let it tear your world upside down if you let it, but you don't have to. You can, and it helps over time because you see, well, everything's still here, but at first it seems like, are we even going to be here tomorrow? I mean, it seems so uncertain. So we were just going to
Right.
sort of chat about some of the, it's an emotional roller coaster ride. So we thought it would be important to get on here and be that gentle voice, as you were saying we were in the beginning,
Yes.
for some other people now that might be
It
awakening.
it makes you think, doesn't it?
Yep, and for those that know me, that was my big one, the thinker statue. And I'm so thankful I
Yeah.
had one growing up to look at on my desk, because when you see something so many times, it's beyond memory. You just know what it's
Right.
like. There's no way that I get mistaken where his fist. You know what I mean? And then there's all the proof, like the thinker pose in the bodybuilding, and then there's all sorts of residue.
Right. And that's the thing is it's not that we remember differently, it's that we actually experienced it
Differently.
differently.
Yeah.
And so when we come here to the new here, the ones who say, well, that's never been that way, I call them locals. And and for their experience and their memories of their experience, that's true. It didn't happen for them. And if you look it up online or in history books, um, it's only going to reflect the current reality that it is. So there's even history.com or like for me, speaking of think, we always sang the Beatles growing up. My mom loved the Beatles, so I was introduced to them. And what would you, if I sang out of tune? When that word changed, it used to be, what would you do? And then when I entered a reality where it's always been, what would you think? I immediately looked at videos, and all the videos have the Beatles mouthing and singing the word think. And that made me emotional because I'm like, uh, those are not my Beatles. What's going on? And at the very beginning, with something, another example, I thought, am I dead? Or are they dead? Am I the zombie?
Am I in a
Or are they the
coma? Oh my
zombies?
God, there's so many
Yeah.
possibilities when your brain gets to going. It's like, oh my gosh, it's endless. I mean, so many, so many rabbit holes of thought that you can go down. That's why it's so helpful. Not only finding each other online, but some of us had the opportunity. You got to meet Eileen in person too, and
Oh, yeah.
so that was another thing. I was like, are these people online even real? How can I? So it was nice to actually
Right.
hug some real people. I'm glad you got to meet Eileen, even though you didn't get to make it out to that gathering or
Yeah.
whatever. So,
I Reese, Shardagon, I call him my Emmy mate. Goodness gracious, I'm so thankful for him. And I think his theory that that we're each in our bubble and really are not supposed to meet up with each other, I think there's truth to it. Um, but I'm stubborn. I'm a black sheep dressed as a good girl. but
a rebel.
but I'm stuck. I guess so, but I'm not trying to stir trouble or anything, but that said, I spent a couple years meeting many of the emirs that I saw online because I wanted to touch them and pinch their skin and have them pinch me and just know that that wasn't AI. I don't know how else to put it bluntly without sounding crazy or conspiratorial or whatever. I just wanted to know that they were as real as I am. And speaking of real, REAL, I do feel that every rabbit hole, if life were a movie, every rabbit hole is real. You can always find proof. And the more you're looking for it, the more you'll find that that rabbit hole is real. And if life were a movie, every REEL, every
Hmm.
rabbit hole or every reel is as real as every other one.
Yeah.
So now I'm okay with that, and now I don't even bother. Um, I don't even click on anybody else's links for two reasons. One, that's their reel, that's their rabbit hole, that's their consciousness template that's been funneled into that.
Hmm.
And then when I was on the phone with JW, miss him so much, goodness. I was on the phone with him and Reese, and I did a screenshot. Whatever we were talking about, it applied. And so Dead GPK, I love all you guys. Um, I had done a screenshot and from comments. So there were three um, comments, and for me, Dead GPK was the center comment, and that's the one that applied to whatever we were talking about. But then Reese and JW were on a three-way call. They don't understand what I'm saying about the center comment. And we finally figured out that the screenshot that I sent them, for each of them, they were in a different order. So all three of us had them in a different order. So I feel like the Matrix Manager, our gaming selves to the avatar selves, source, God, whatever, put us three together and made us aware. Oh, whatever props changes, but also the very screenshot that I'm sending can change. So
Which is a
that's
photo,
my
so
large.
it shouldn't be able to change. It's not like a web page where your device might make it show up differently. We're talking about an
Right,
image. It should be a picture,
right,
right? So
right.
to get back to what you were saying, with it sounding so crazy when you were considering all this stuff and feeling like you sound crazy, when you notice things happen that you were told your whole life are impossible to happen, it like just really opened your brain up to say, well, what else have I been told can't happen? What else can happen that
Right.
I've been told can't happen because my reality is changing in a seemingly impossible way. And nobody seems to notice what the heck's going on here, right? I mean,
I
for
think
a
that,
while I felt like I was going to have to play along. You know what I mean? The way the response you get from people, you know,
oh, the responses to
that's like a whole nother scary thing, you know?
that was disturbing because we went. uh, I'm so glad I had all of you. We were like, okay, they're not remembering it the way we they're not remembering it the way we remember it. Not only that, for those that did temporarily remember it, then they would get a download, and everybody's download response seemed to follow the same script. So because we were connected online, it's like, oh, Helen from the UK. So, like for the Monopoly Man, for many of us, we experienced him always having a monocle. And so I would go through thrift stores, antique stores, just to find the old stuff because the locals, people would say, oh, he never had one, or oh yeah, I know he had one, but new marketing, new logo, new design, but they wouldn't take the time to look at the company's own history of the Monopoly Man. So, or like Fruit of the Loom, always had a cornucopia for me, and the logo history of Fruit of the Loom cornucopia, Fruit of the Loom website, their own company says they never had it. So I would go to thrift stores to try to find the old stuff, and and oh my gosh, the antique Monopoly board didn't the guy didn't have a monocle.
Never did. Yeah.
But the thrift store, one of my fun finds was the Pillsbury Doughboy, who for me always had a blue scarf. And then I've known, so now as far as I know, I'm now in a white scarf place. But I know people that have also were in a red scarf, experienced him with the red scarf. I never did, but at the thrift store, I found salt and pepper shaker, and it was hand painted, and so it was blue scarf. So anything that cannot be copy and pasted,
Hmm. Uh,
I'm not very
Introducing
computer.
human consciousness into the mix, I think, is the key thing. It's like, because if
Yes.
somebody writes out Febreze in the way they know it is, it doesn't change.
Hmm.
But if you just copy and paste in the computer, then when the change happens, everything you just copied and pasted changed too, even if it was originally Febreze with the double E, like we all
Right.
remember, you know. But when you handwrite it, it's
Hmm.
it's kind of like, that's why the songs with when people do cover songs, right? And they've just memorized the song, they know the words, so it
But
doesn't.
like Joe Cocker sings "What Would You Do" for the Beatles. And so that still exists. But
Hmm.
see, then the people who are logical, and admittedly, I was more logical, even though I'm a very emotional, heart based person. We can say, oh, well, that's just creative differences.
Right.
So, but no, don't gaslight yourself, people, just because the online search is saying that you experienced it differently and that it never was. Stay strong, and no, you're not crazy, but yes, you're in a new dimension, or whatever word is there a new word that we use for that?
Yeah, new
Dimension,
timeline, new
reality.
reality, new dimension, new universe,
You know
parallel
how,
universe, I think is used a lot. Yeah.
what I always have to, for me to make sense of the nonsensical, is to explain it in imagery. And so I don't know if the younger folks know what an overhead projector is, but in school, teachers would use an overhead projector. And to me, that is Earth. And then the different worlds on Earth are the different clear,
Hmm.
is it plastic clear sheets of paper.
Hmm.
And so luckily, I was raised an atheist, very cut and dry, logic based. And then at age 32, I experienced seeing my first dead person. And I'm not talking about a dead body, I'm talking about a live spirit. And it's not like Hollywood. It wasn't scary, it was very lovely. And so I've experienced the unexplainable. So then I realized, oh, I'm in this body. I'm not the body. And then because now I have a sampler tray of all sorts of sixth sense woo woo stuff, I realize, oh, if we're going to say, is like this hand, this body is only a pinky. So my whole essence, only part of me is in this Gen body. And then, of course, we Mandela Effect people realize that we can reincarnate sideways, but I've also experienced my own self as two other eras. One in, it's too far out there, maybe, I don't know, but as an 1800, I'm thinking 1800s. I'm not really good with history, but my dress was, my ankles were showing, so that should kind of, I think 1800s. It's not all of my ankles, but still. And then another time I was a Native American um, running um, from another Native American, and I wasn't clothed. I might have had something. I did have something on my lower half. I was a Native American male, but I was being chased by another Native American, and they were on horseback. So,
Were these
and I believe
memories that or was it dreams, or just what was it? Or was it like a regression session, or
no.
how did it come through? How,
um, it just is, and like, how am I experiencing this? I'm in my room. I'm looking out the window. I'm wearing a sundress. How am I experiencing that?
right. So I'm just
So
wondering how the memory first manifested in your
it,
life. Did it just one day you
it
remembered it?
wasn't one day I experienced it. So the Native American, I was still in school, and the arrow did get me on my ankle, and I I've thought about this. So I was called Jenny then. Jenny realized you cannot pull out the arrow. You have to push it through, right?
Right.
So that's the first time I became aware of that. But I've thought about it. Would an indigenous person already know that? I mean, I was a an older teenager,
Hmm.
but I was a young man, not
But
an
that
older
ended up
teenager.
taking your life, or
No,
oh, it
no.
didn't.
Um, I I don't know actually.
I
But I
mean, it could
had
have
to
like
push
further
it
down the line if
through.
it had gotten infected or something like that. But in that moment,
Yeah,
you didn't.
and I don't know. Yeah, but it didn't. But I was scared, and I live in the southeast right now of the USA, and we have loblolly pine trees here,
Hmm.
and I was running in a forest of loblolly, so so that was one. But part of me wants to go, oh, Jen, you were just hallucinating, whatever. Um, so I did have in school I did have a dream of, and this was a nighttime dream of jumping off the high dive. I had never jumped off of one before, and it was too scary. But because I always wonder and ponder about things, I thought, how does my stomach? It felt like it went from my stomach, and then it went up. The scared feelings went up, and I was like, how does my body like? That was not a familiar feeling. So the next day I go to the local pool, and I jump off the in the name of, my detective work. Yeah, you don't have to call me Mama Jen. You can call me Detective Jen. But I jumped. I was so scared, but I jumped off, and it was the exact same feeling. So maybe time's not linear, and that's why my dream, I knew what it felt like, because maybe time's not linear, and my dream happened actually after I actually jumped off. But then the one with the woman, the 1800s woman. I'm an adult. This happened. So I moved to South Carolina 2020, 2021. So okay. So anyhow, I'm
So more recently, huh?
in yeah, and I am walking across my living room, and then I don't know how to say this, but if if you look at my hand, okay, so this is Jen, this Mama Jen that I am today, and then just the back of my hand represents the 1800s. So I'm walking, my essence is walking across as what I know, Jen, and then boom. And then I was the 1800s, then boom, boom, boom. It just kept flipping really quickly. And so I was both at the same time. And so I was trying to observe. It's not even observing. I just realized I was somebody different, but I was still me. I don't know if I wear a corset, but I definitely have a different body type. I was female, and then the collar went up. But that's not even the point of that experience. I feel like I had an aha. This me, realized that whatever I do here, I affect the other me's. And so with the Mandela effect, the side by side reincarnation, I 100% believe that we uh, are connected to all of them. And so specifically, what I was working on at that time is speaking up um, to abuse. And then I realized if I speak up now in this gen, I then bring the 1800s me. I don't know what her name was, but then she's able to speak up. And so I'm getting shivers. That leads me to the belief is one of the ways we can change our history, because if that 1800s me is previous to the now me, but I'm currently affecting the 1800s me, then that 1800s history would change, right?
Hmm.
So
That whole
that's
lifetime would change.
which can be a ripple effect, and
Right.
therefore
Because it's a previous life to
all
this one still.
right.
What a paradox,
And
right?
so
And you can go down the hole
right,
with that when you think about how everything's
yes,
like
you're
frequency all affecting each other, and it's like this feedback loop, retrocausal effects through lifetimes before, you know? Have you experienced anything in this life parallel, like memories from this lifetime that you don't remember actually living, but now
yes.
you have the memory of living it?
It's on that topic. So sorry, this part I shake internally because it's still startling. So when I moved to this version, but I'm still Jen, um, I'm a different Jen here for the people around me, and the people around me are different. So, for example, my sisters have different nicknames. Actually, I'm the oldest, so the middle sister never had a nickname, and and my baby sister's name is Michelle, and her nickname was Mish. And so when I visited my parents in 2018 after the jump, um, my mom, I was staying at my mom's, and she kept calling baby sister, referring to her as Misha, like some Russian name or something. And so when Mish finally came over, she lived nearby, but and I said, "How long's mom been calling you Misha?" And she goes, "Always." And I said, "Well, who else calls you Misha?" She goes, "Everyone." And I said, "Oh," and then she says, "You're the only one that calls me Mish." Now I have an anchor memory um, from Mish. I didn't understand why, when seeing it written, my parents wrote it as Mish because her name's Michelle. So I was being logical and I just thought Mich. But if she's always been Misha, I don't even know how they spell Misha, but anyhow, my mom's died. And so earlier this year, a year after her death, I've been getting photographs that Mish has been giving me, and I knew my history changed. My own history is different from what I experienced than what my loved ones here experienced of me. And so there are many examples, but those I opened the first box of photographs, and there are photographs of things I never did. So,
So that kind of leads me to one of my theories that I think, because most people kind of look at it like we jump from Sagittarius to the Orion spur or whatever the heck they call it, right?
right, right.
But I feel like it's more of like the soup of consciousness, and I'll tell you why. I feel like it's the soup of consciousness that sort of collapses down into the reality we experience, and it's really this one reality that's shifting and more is adding into it. So like it would be more like merging timelines. So like when we look at the one picture of all the softball girls next to the statue and they've got their fist to
Which
their
that,
forehead,
which, oh,
but
that's
the
not you. Okay.
thinker has the new pose, you can tell that at the time they took the photo, they matched. But like we were
Right,
talking about consciousness, if we had jumped from one timeline to the other, then the girls would have always been the girls that matched the statue in their timeline. So to me, it
right,
seems like it's one reality that's merged with, or two realities that's either merged together, or one reality that's just changed. The matter part of it's changed. Kind of to show us maybe that, I think consciousness is really at the base of everything rather than matter. But our science looks at matter as being like grit, being, molecules or whatever. So I don't think our brain creates consciousness. I think consciousness creates our brain. You know what I mean? Or the whole
yes.
reality, but that would include the brain. You know what I mean?
Okay. I I used to think it was your first example, but I'm more and more thinking it's one here now. And so that I'm the Native American, I'm the 1800, I'm this me and all the me the gens. Um, it's all happening now. And I don't know. I just don't want to offend any historians or cultural or
Well, I think even
political is
all of that is breaking down even. We're seeing that so much of the history is just complete BS. I mean, like seriously just made up out of just for the agenda purpose and like I've even heard that
yes.
things reset like in the mid 1800s or 1700s or 1800s, and so everything
Okay, so
we yeah, and I totally can get on board with that. I can see that happening
okay,
with the
so
mud floods and the orphan trains. Do
Mhm.
you know about them? All that stuff's so weird, you know?
Okay, so one of my, downloads was, that, um, that that Earth is one, chessboard, let's just say, and, I have a chessboard that flips over to backgammon, so that's why I'm the one visualizing it that way, that whether it's our avatar is a person's calling. I'm going to I'll
Oh, I can
call you
pause it if
back.
you want. Okay.
I just read a call. I didn't know if you were hearing a beep on your side. Okay, so the message I got was that we're in the process of changing the board changing, the game changing. Okay, and
Hmm.
so but they don't want to start over with the players. The and so it's almost like moving them and then slowly changing, and it's a three-dimensional game. So the they're in the midst of changing the props. So it is it a fun, you and I are gamers and we're collectively always able to change the the virtual game that our avatars are playing. With this knowledge, it can be used for good or evil. Maybe someone, I now feel that this body is an avatar, but when I was in the play as an actor, I thought I was the character.
Right.
And so, maybe there was another image download was we're in a playground and the playground so we're each all playing our own way and we're letting other people play and then we're co-stars in each other's play. So we're just playing with each other, live and let live, play on the playground and let play. But uh, then you get a bully, let's say, who who realize that he's a a gamer and can and go, oh, they don't even know that they're avatars. They think they are those. So we can just change the books on the bookshelf. Hey, let's put them to work. We'll let them change the whole playground so that they can sit on their high horse or whatever. And I don't know. So I'm thinking there's use with this knowledge, and it is intended for us all to play. It's just we've forgotten, or the memories are purposefully or not purposely removed. And and maybe we do, just like when we awoke and people would be like, well, that was never that case. Maybe that amnesia is purposeful so that we can fully play and like vertical reincarnation. I feel like most just start over, even though the game player never died. The avatar, starts over as if it's fresh. So me, you have to
And
rein me in because
and
I
you know,
can keep
people
going.
and it's so funny because people will say that, that like, I'm never reincarnating again if I have a choice or whatever, but then like they get out of it like, oh my God, that was so much fun. Let's go do it again. And you just don't understand that you can be in that place, right? So I'm totally on board with the avatar thing. I think we're projecting into here. And I think
Mhm,
one of the reasons why I like to think of it as a game is because it gives you the mindset that just like in a video game, if you're playing it, you know the keys to the doors that you have to go find. Everything's going to be there within the game. There's no limit to how much you can grow. The game is going to appear to be harder and harder as you progress, like a game does, but you're going to be more and more capable to handle it. And this is what I've seen in my own life. Things haven't gotten easier, so to speak. I've just grown in a way that I'm able to handle more than I used to be able to handle. But like you never get to the spot where it's like smooth sailing, no issues at all. You just have that higher perspective to realize like, and I don't know if you've been to this place or not, but you can actually pull yourself far enough out of your avatar that you look and you're like, oh
Yes.
my God, this game is actually perfect. We're
Oh,
getting exactly what we need to get right
yes.
now to, because most of the things we worry about, like death, none of that's real. You know, the pain is
Right.
temporary. It's just for the game to make it exciting. Even the bully, he was scripted to be in it just to, you know what I
Right.
mean? We do it to ourselves in
Right.
Hollywood. Look at every movie. We always put a bad guy or a bully or somebody in it
Right.
because it's just not very interesting, especially towards the end, like which I feel like we're kind of at this point now where things for people they feel so hopeless. And that's how a good movie is. Good movies always feel so hopeless at the end. It's like
Yeah.
this can't turn around, you know, but then the hero
And I don't
emerges.
think it's the end. I think it's a new beginning. We're in the
Right.
process of just the
Yeah,
new
the sequel, right?
gaming.
So it's
Yes.
like just
Yes.
moving into this new era, and I think that's what a lot
Yeah.
of this is. It's like the separation from having sort of the animalistic beast mindset or having the higher consciousness. So I'm kind of on board with some of the talks of Dolores Cannon that maybe these are side effects of some sort of consciousness split, like a cell dividing or something, because you can see two different realities sort of emerging just within the collective, and maybe that could account for some Mandela effects that we see, and the fact that some people see. I always tell people I feel glad that I can see both versions. I feel like you're not seeing
Yeah.
something. I mean, those who have eyes to see, right? So we should be
Right.
thankful and that we can see these things, even though they're kind of, you know, they'll freak you out or whatever. But I also feel like it was a divine gathering because what other reason would we have found to come together and discuss these things and meet in person and find these other loving people? So if you look at it as a game, you can see how the introduction of this new level of the Mandela effect. Of course, it's scary, just like when you start a new level and you see new monsters coming out that you haven't seen before that you got to learn how to fight. What do these things do, right? And it's kind of like that. It's been like that with this, you know, with this journey through, especially since the Mandela effect happened. You know, it's just so many uncertainties, but at
You
some
know,
level, it seems orchestrated, you know?
um, Angela and her son Christopher.
Hmm.
Okay. So, if people talk to me about spirits before I started experiencing them myself, I would just immediately just disengage from the conversation politely, but still I wouldn't get it. So luckily I had the I See Dead People experience, a couple
Hmm.
decades before the Mandela effect. So Angela asked her, she could converse with Christopher, and I've scripted their names lovely. Haven't we scripted their names so lovely? Angel
Hmm.
and
In
Christ
Christ, yeah.
consciousness.
And just for those
I'm not
that don't know,
religious.
I've had her on the show to explain that, you know, her son passed away, but he was giving her all sorts of signs after his passing. And you can look it up from quite a few years ago,
So
but a beautiful story.
so one of the things, they talked about a lot of things, but one of the things when she became aware of the Mandela effect, she said, "Why?" And he starts laughing. And she's like, "It's not funny," but he said, We're having so much fun coming up with them." And so that kind of aligned with me because I feel like the Mandela effects are almost like clues for us people, um,
I
in
totally agree.
earthly form. So for me, or it may also be a reflection of the game board that we're on or in.
Hmm.
um so like, what would you do if I sang out of tune, which I'm doing now? but 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 the previous reality, some people say 3D, 5D, whatever. um that's all of this is new verbiage to me, but I'm just using it for those people. So let's just say the 3D was very do based. But the new phrasing is, what would you think if I sang out of tune? It's, if Shane, if you didn't like my singing and you just got up and left, and it's like, huh, scoffing. Simon Cowelling it. Um, that's one thing, but our new beings, um, in the 5D, we are so sensitive that you could sit there in your chair. You may think it like, oh my gosh, she's singing out of tune, judge, 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 but you don't say anything. Then this new world that we're in, new dimension, whatever. Um, yeah, what would you think if I sang out of tune? That's actually affecting me. That's actually affecting you.
Right.
And so I feel like we're leveling up. Also, with my near-death experience, I don't like the words ascension, leveling up, which I just said. It's just different. What I saw before I knew what a toroidal field was, I called it a donut. What I saw was space, for lack of terminology, which was the same space that I saw that's my first spirit, my first dead person.
Mhm.
We were just in space. There was no up or down. We weren't even in bodies. We were just there. And so um, so with that, I saw my first dead person. We were just in space. When I saw the when I was um, in
That's
space and I saw the donut, the toroidal field, that was where I was in space, represented as a little girl, I think. Um, it was just a representation so I could understand it.
mhm.
Um, but it's my essence in space, and where my essence plays, lives, is in that toroidal field. And and what I experience depends on, and then that little girl me had like a conductor. It looked like a magic wand, but it was a musical
Mhm.
conductor
Right.
baton. I don't know what they're called. And then instead of musical notes, it was a string of numbers. So I'm thinking of Terrence Howard.
Right.
I don't understand all that, but that was the best that it could be translated to me for me to understand. And it was just how I experienced things in the toroidal field. It was my essence conducting it. But then in my near death experience, I was in the donut and I was just in space and I could move. I was no longer in this body. So I did return to my body eventually, but I was in different parts of the donut. So I don't think we're leveling up. I don't think we're ascending. It's just dependent on which slice of the donut we want to play in.
I
And
think
so there is no.
accurately it would be probably more of an expansion than leveling up or whatever, just an expansion in your awareness of the area that you're already possessing. You just are unaware of it. You know what I mean? So it's
So
kind of tuning in more.
being aware is a maybe the icing on the donut or something. it
Yeah.
it's do we choose to be aware or not? And so you were talking about, do you ever leave so I have a dear friend. She's known as she used to have a House of Beloved. I don't know what she wants to go by now, so I'm not going to use her name. But she and I have become friends in real life too, because I'm stubborn and want to meet everybody. Um, and so she and I text more than we talk, and because she lives in a different state. But we were texting back and forth, and then she sends me a photo, and because of my woo woo sixth sense stuff, I recognized that look. And so I asked her, I said, "This is what I'm getting. Are you wanting to not live?" And because part of this awareness, when you realize that you don't die, then I became despondent. there for a long while because it's a life sentence. But then I vacillate to, well, if I'm here forever, might as well have fun. And then I keep returning to that knowing, but anyhow, um, but I was concerned when I saw that and the texting stopped. So then I don't know how much, it's just expansion, expansion. Okay, so you know how I can I'm telepathic in some ways. I can know what I can see dead people, but I can also know things in people that are here. I know what's going on with them,
Hmm.
and then I can also smell remotely. My furthest one was to Canada, of what was going on at their place, and so I will call up my circle of friends. I'm like, all right, you know, who's my most fun one was the Christmas tree scent, and I was like, why? I asked this person. She's known as Alice in Wonderland, and I asked her why. You know, isn't it kind of late to be getting a Christmas tree? It was just a couple days before Christmas, and uh, and she laughs. They already know this about me, and she was actually at a mall smelling Christmas scented candles. So I may not get it right,
All right.
but okay. So I can smell things remotely, and then I can hear. I'm pointing to my ear. It's not my ear. I can hear it,
Hmm.
whatever, internally. I'll hear a song. I won't even know the song sometimes, but it'll be a certain part of a song. And so then my circle of friends, I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but and then I'll do a video of me singing it. And it like my favorite story of that one is I love the Beatles, but I didn't know they sang "My Guitar Gently
Oh yeah.
Weeps." Okay, so I didn't even know about that song. We were limited to the record albums that my mom had. But it turns out that I call her the llama mama because she has llamas. And I did visit her in person, so she's as real as I am. But at that exact moment, she coincidentally, I use that loosely, coincidentally was telling her son about or showing her son the guitars that her dead father that belonged to her dead father. So the fact that I hear that song, was it the father that was coming through me for them? Was I just in tune, pun intended,
Hmm.
with that vibration? I don't know how it works. Okay, so I have it's just different tools in my tool belt. So now over the years, I'll be like, oh, like the last song I had for someone, and it was only a section of the thing, but the song was something stupid, and I'm like, hmm, is this something you should be doing? Like it'll give me clues, you know, give me insights. So I have different tools, the smelling, the hearing songs, just hearing the conversation, even though it's presented differently with their mouth. I also hear the other side, that's their internal. Okay, so my latest thing is my finger will text words that are I used to think was just autocorrect or that I swiped improperly. But over the years, I've realized it's very coincidental that the word is nowhere near the alphabet letters that I was hitting, but it's representing what's going on with that person. And so it's like another tool in my belt. And so back to House of Beloved, I I didn't hear back from her when I commented on that photo. And so, like an hour later, I said, I am so sorry if I was off base. I'm probably projecting. And then for the word projecting, sorry, this ends up being so funny. For the word projecting, I my finger types the word Orpheum, Orpheum. Never heard of that word, never saw the word. And so so after I write that I'm sorry note, because I certainly don't want to distance myself from her if she is not wanting to live. Um, but then I write, hey, I text, does Orpheum mean anything to you? Because I corrected projecting. I spelled it properly. But but then she calls me, and so I'm like, oh. So we end up catching up for an hour, totally not addressing the Orpheum comment, okay? So we end up talking, and she is at a level that I've been in, and it is lonely when you cannot talk with others cannot share in the experience that you are. And so I've been to the Roman Colosseum. So what it is, I've experienced other selves of me. Like I, in this me, have experienced my younger me, and I've experienced my older me. And I've also seen another me. I was sleeping, and I thought someone was in the room, like looking at me. And so I opened my eyes, and oh my gosh, it's me looking at me. And I was seeing me through both sets of eyes. So it was very confusing. That was at the beginning. So it was very, of course, confusing at the beginning, right? So I've seen different me's. And so now one of the me's, the main bigger me, is on that stadium. I'm high up on the bleachers, like a football stadium, watching the three ring circus. So the Mandela Effect, or the 1800s Native American, it's like the three ring circus. And and it is so calm and blissful and amusing. Really, we're having fun when we're up there. And I'm not saying up there in heaven at some cloud. I'm saying up there on the bleachers. And then it gets disappointing when I realize, oh my gosh, I've been back in one of the three ring circus circles and forgot that I'm part of many three ring circuses, and I totally forgot that I'm also up there watching all this. And because you feel so literally heavy and dense, and oh, I don't know if I can pay this bill, like, just and you I just get so
And this is you
sad.
telling her in that hour conversation, right, about this?
Right,
Right, right,
right.
okay.
And so she's experiencing that. And when we are not all the way back on the high bleachers, but
Mhm.
we're aware enough while we're in the three ring circus, then it's depressing, and that's when the despondency for me comes in. And I can't really say what she was feeling in that picture, but she did acknowledge that, yeah, she's dealing with something at that time the photo was sent. And that it's frustrating when she gets engaged with the drama trauma stuff, forgetting that we're up there, right? So we're just laughing about us, our many selves. And then when the conversation's wrapping up, she goes, oh wait, what did you mean by Orpheum? Did you mean Orpheus, with an S as in Sam instead of M as in Mary? And I said, no, but that when I looked it up, the engine search also asked me the same thing. And my finger, and she knows about my, because I also have messages for her. Yeah. So she knows about that tool in my belt. And I said, my finger's always specific. And she said, well, because I'm reading a book about Orpheus. So just like your 1111, how the synchronicities, the coincidences, the further up high in the in the stadium seats that you have, the more gears are aligned. I'm just picturing those clock years. So the more so it's totally multitasking. But no, I'm not talking about Orpheus the book. And so I said, oh, I looked it up, but I forget what it means because I couldn't understand it. And the definition of Orpheum is a venue for a live play or live event, a venue for a live event. What were we just talking about for that whole hour or more?
Yeah, the
About
circus and the arena and the Coliseum or whatever.
the
So really,
Orpheum.
our reality can be an Orpheum. See, so I'm
Right.
I'm looking at the way all these people's lives are getting shaken up so much, especially by the
Mhm.
Mandela effect. And then I look at your game board analogy, sort of download that you got, and it was so similar to the download I got about the cymatic plate with sand on it. So have we all seen? We've all seen where you put sand on the plate and you play the frequencies, and it creates these beautiful
Oh,
geometric patterns. And it was shown to me how like
yes.
we're grains of sand in the Orpheum, if you will, and we're
Yes.
vibrating. Some of us are going to really have our life shaken up. Some of us might bounce off the plate this time around. Some of us are already where we're going to be when the new pattern emerges. We don't have much movement to go. So it's like a repatterning of the game or the reality. We're done playing this
Yes.
game of slavery and we're ready to move on and experience new things. And you can feel
Uh-huh.
that excitement about what do we
Yeah.
want to do next. We're done like bullying people, that we're that's so last reality. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
Yes.
when you were
Oh,
telling me
oh,
about that download, I'm like, oh my god, I got a similar download that sounds just like what you were saying about the game changing, and that's similar. Yeah, I love that.
you know, when when I um when I see dead people, that's when a whole bunch of sixth sense stuff came to
Hmm.
me. And this is where I lose some people because that's another religion. I'm not any religion. People want me to make them their religion. I'm like, no. But then, so I see movies here and I see imagery, but the images speak in terms that I understand. So, like when I was requested internally to put my hand on this assistant manager at the Wendy's fast food restaurant. First of all, I'm not a very obedient conduit because I'll be like, I don't know her. I'm not
Right.
doing that. I do before then I did like swipe energy away from my children. Just I didn't know that was a thing. Healing hands, Reiki. I didn't know about any of that. But when I was told anyhow, it got so strong. The woman was limping. And so I think my heart connected to hers. And she was so lovely. She immediately accepted when I said, I don't know why, but I'm being told to put my hand on you. And and so she just stood there ready to receive. I'm still sitting in the booth eating or was eating, but she received it. And so while my hand is on her, and she's limping. So Jen, thought it was the leg. But as soon as I said, where is it? My hand went straight to part of her back. And she looks at me and she goes, how'd you know? I said, I'm telling you, I don't know how this works, but my hand knew. And that was the back is where the injury was. I'm not a medical person. So the movie I get as this was happening is not speaking to me in this is this muscle, this is this organ, whatever. It's literally showing me a fist because I've been abused. Fists are bad unless you're thinking.
Hmm.
um, by the way, we're thinking less. That's why we're relaxed and we're not covering up our mouth as much. So that's why it's moving for me. But anyhow, so if somebody else saw a movie with the fist, that would mean something else to them. So it's very specific to me, is what I'm saying. So the way you got your download is different than mine because you're into music. You're an artist and a musician, so of course you're going to get it that way.
Hmm.
I play played backgammon. I don't even want to say I play chess. I'm familiar with what the pieces do, but I don't really. But I'm a gamer.
Hmm.
Um, Anybody who wants to play games with me, please come over. But I'm a gamer, and so it had to speak to me that way. You
Yeah.
know, I'm a foodie. That's why it had to be a donut.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a rodeo field was,
But I think
and
what you're bringing
so
up is an important point because that's one of the things I didn't realize grasp fully when I first experienced the Mandela effect. I didn't think it could be so personal. I didn't think you could get a message that's so specific to you that you can be the only one to get that specific message because it's your previous experience and history in your life and what a donut or whatever means to you, right? So I would get little messages within the changes, and I started seeing an intelligence in the change in some of the changes. Like I think that's another. I don't know if you have any like that that you can say, man, that shows a level of intelligence beyond a CERN side effect or something, because some people think we're just seeing these ripples of weird things happening. There's no meaning to it. It's happening, but it's not like an intelligence behind the change. But like when I look at George Reeve and Christopher Reeves swapping their last name to be George
mm,
Reeves and Christopher
right.
Reeve, to me that shows intelligence. Why would, it's not random. It was very specific because you're going to notice that. And it was like that for me with Barbara
So
Streisand
so
and
for the
Barbara
young
Walters.
people,
Yeah.
George Reeve was the actor who played
Superman
Superman,
originally, back when it
original
was black and
Superman.
white. Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Christopher Reeves.
Christopher Reeves was the first colored
Hmm.
pictured one. Yeah.
And now it's
See,
swapped.
yeah,
If you
right,
look up their
right,
names, now it's Christopher Reeve, and the original guy was George Reeves. But I know for a fact, well, here's the thing. So I learned that from people that knew the actor's name was George Reeve. I didn't know that. They just remember it and said, I don't really remember. I just remember one was Reeve and one was Reeves. So a lot of people do that in their mind, right? They won't make a very good memory of things. Sometimes they'll just remember that they were
right.
different, you know?
I feel like our higher selves,
Right, like Christopher.
Christopher and Angela, that they're laughing, trying to come up with ways to gently wake us up, even though it doesn't feel gentle at times. So, like ET phone home,
Right?
now it's always been ET
Home
home
phone.
phone.
Yeah.
And then I know someone dear to me who is resists anything, can't even listen to me talking about the Mandela effect. But he literally said, "Build it, and they will come." And now it's always been build it, and he will come. At least in my
Yep. In
reality.
the Field of
And
Dreams
and the
movie.
fact that he used they, and I just like just um my daughter, who's aware of it, she's like, "What, mom?" I'm like, i'm not I'm not talking right now. I'm not saying. And she's aware that I see her with different ear piercing placements depending on which reality I happen, because now it can be more fluid.
Oh,
It
totally.
doesn't have
Yeah, I
to be.
remember going to Chuck E. Cheese's and, I kept pointing out, like, why does it have it here this way? And the plates would have it one way. And I was like, look, it's like shifting all over the place. Some of it's Chuck E. Cheese and some of it's Chuck E. Cheese's. And so, yeah, it
Yeah,
was definitely proof of, but you sound crazy because it seems like every conversation will be about a movie that has one or a song that has one or a product.
but
It's like comes up so
I
much.
think there is intelligence, because once we realized, oh, it's not one way, it can be another way. But then, like for the lion lamb, which two animals lay together, everyone who experienced it as lion and the lamb, then it became wolf in the lamb. Well, I experienced leopard in the lamb as well. So for me, I was comfortable eventually to go, oh, it's not just one or the other. So
Right.
so oh, that's the point I was trying to make, is with the sixth sense experience, is once I can accept, once I go, oh, okay, thank you, that can happen. I can see dead people, or I can put my hand on someone and they can walk normally again, which was the end of that story. The point is, then more comes because I've accepted. So some people are still stuck in one or the other Mandela effect
Mm-hmm.
thinking, but once you know there are many waves in the ocean and you can float and dive into any, and so quickly that now, with that build it and they will come conversation, we were sitting at a diner, my daughter's like, no, say it. And I'm going to respect that person. They're not interested in the Mandela effect. So and I believe people who don't want to be, like, they have a right to be in their slice of the donut. Who am I to say, keep talking about it? That's, know
Right.
thy audience. And so then I just tell my daughter, I go, show me your earrings, because she knows that I see them in different ear placements. And that told her, that was a kind of an inside joke, which was probably
But it
rude
was a
and
hint to
weird.
let her know to let it go. It's something with the Mandela effect. And she
Yeah,
got the
yeah.
message. She's like, oh.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for her. And you know what happened yesterday? It makes me emotional. Okay, so another thing I can see is one person morph morphing. So I had she's now 80, but she was in her 70s when this first started happening, and she and I are very good friends. She was talking about something that bothered her, and then and she's has beautiful white hair, and then she morphs into this little girl, I'm thinking like 6 years old, with a haircut, just I later found out it's called page boy haircut or something like that. And she morphs in front of me, and I end up interrupting her. I said, I'm sorry, I can't even hear what you're saying anymore because this is happening. And so over, oh, people know her as the lovely lady from the previous years. But anyhow, so I have now seen her morph into a teenage self, and when she was she was the current self was worried about a driving parking situation, and then I saw her as, I believe she was like 16 years old, with the ponytail, and I'm able to verify it because I did not know her back then. And then so she'll show me photos of what I was seeing, and it's like, yep, that was you. So I've seen, so things morph in front of me, and I'm okay with it, right? It gives me, it's more tools in my tool belt. So
Has the
I
Mandela effect helped unlock more and more gifts for you, would you say? Once
yeah,
you,
yeah,
because
totally.
it
Yeah.
totally kind of breaks your mind outside of the box of what's possible and makes you kind of be, I don't know, more open to wild stuff happening because the more you believe can happen, the more you actually notice happens that you would have never believed could happen before. It's almost like you have to believe it to see it, is what I'm kind of getting at.
Well, what I feel is that we thought that we were just a flat star-shaped paper. And then when I realized, oh, one of my points is sticking out, it's not flat shape. So we are multi-pointed um, star-shaped beings, and it's not even just, I mean, there's so many points. And then the more that I'm able to accept, oh, I can do this, then phew, there are so many. Okay, but what happened yesterday is my daughter and I went to, my youngest and I went to see Back to the Future, the original, on big screen.
Hmm.
And so maybe this influenced it. I don't know, but I'm enjoying it. I I'm healing from learning to walk again. And so when we were saying goodbye, she's standing there as I'm now out of the wheelchair. I don't know if you know that, but I'm using the walker thing, and then she was just saying some very caring, you did a lot of physical work by going to the theater, and I had physical therapy before, so it was a lot on my body. And she was being, so I turn around and look at her, and she's totally morphed into another person. And I recognized her right away. She was my mother from, not from this lifetime, but from like another time zone. And I'm thinking, okay, so when my 29-year-old child was little, she looked up at me one time. We were walking side by side, and she goes, "Remember when I was your mom?" And so I think I met my mom again.
Wow, that's awesome. So I see this all the time in doing these sessions where people will play different roles, and it totally makes sense, right? I mean, we do this as little kids with your
Oh
anybody
yeah,
that had a
you're.
little sibling or something. You've played house, you've played, where you're
Mhm.
playing different roles, and we've all gotten lost in a game, especially on our phones. If you're playing one of those phone games and you're like, "Oh my God, where'd that hour go?" Right? So it's like
Right,
if we can get lost in a little simple game like that, then we can totally
right,
get lost in this totally immersive experience called reality, right? It wouldn't be hard at
right.
all, especially if you wipe our memory. It all makes sense if you think about it. It's like we've been, go ahead.
That's a computer term, to
Hmm.
wipe your memory, and I think that is done purposefully for either people who just can't handle this mind-blowing
Well, I've often
awareness.
thought about that. What if you were walking through a mall and this guy said, "Hey, I've got this virtual reality game that you can put on. You're not going to remember anything. It makes it extra exciting that you don't remember you're playing a game. It makes it extra real. Do you want to do it?" I think I'd sign up for it, to be honest with you, because I'm just like, really? I won't remember? Yeah, let's try it. And then he says it'll only be an hour, but you'll feel like it's a whole lifetime. What if we're at the mall
Right.
walking through right now, Jen, and it's like we're playing this game and then we're going to be out. We're like, oh my God, it seemed like we spent a whole lifetime in here. Let's do it again.
Well, Gary Zukav, in an interview on TV decades ago, uh, talked, and I believe his book is Seed of the Soul, believes that we have a soul family. So, Shane, I thank you for being in my family and playing with me, because you definitely soften the blow when my awareness. You soften the journey,
Oh, I appreciate that. You did too.
and
And I thank
I
you for
wanted.
coming out of your box and like chatting with me because it was a little bit
Yeah.
hard. And look how much you've grown now. I mean, you've gone through two YouTube channels that both, did they both get shut down? I think.
Yeah,
But
I
now
I
you're on
don't know.
TikTok. Do you want people to know if people are,
Well, I got on TikTok to relate to my youngest. My oldest lives in on the other side of the states, and we just don't connect as much. But the my youngest, everything that comes out of her mouth is, well, on TikTok, da 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 da. It was almost like that's her God, and I do believe we're consciousness
mhm.
funneled into certain templates through programs, and so the TikTok world is its own reality. So I thought, anything that comes out of mom's mouth may not be listened to, but if it's on TikTok, da, 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 da. So I thought, okay, well, we laugh at that, but just think of how many people only watch Fox, only watch CNN, only watch
And that's
YouTube,
their
only
world. Yeah.
whatever program. And it's not even, I'm not even pointing fingers at media. What about families that are born into only this class, only this religion, only this culture? It's just, it's all program template limiting.
But
Yeah.
it follows suit with actual reality because I thought about it. I'm like, if we come from somewhere where we can just speak telepathically and send a thought, and we're just like really open, think of how limited this is that we have to make these sounds out of our mouth. And then
Right.
as you like grow in consciousness, a lot of the concepts it's really hard to put into words. You have to use a lot of metaphors and things because it's beyond
Yes.
anything you've ever experienced, right? So it's like I don't know, it just gets harder to discuss things, and you have to almost connect with like-minded people that know what you're talking about to receive and really get what you're saying. Otherwise you'll
Right.
sound crazy to someone else. Do you know what I mean? You have to have that
Right.
bit of experience along with it to be like, oh yeah, I see what you mean. And that's how we grow. And that's why I think this was a divine gathering, because if we hadn't found each
Yes.
other, who would we be talking to about this? you know
Right.
so we have to really appreciate the community, even though it fractures off into its own little pieces. At least there's that. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, and you had asked previously if my uh local local meaning in my physical reality woo-woo friends would want to talk with you too. So House of Beloved said definitely, and then the lady that I referenced to you as the flyby high, where I flew, my essence flew to her while my body was still sick, recovering. I don't know if you recall that, but she said yes as well. So
Yeah, that'd
um
be good. Maybe we can get a little
I
panel going and people can share what's going on.
yeah, because that one with this I woke up to the Mandela effect a little bit after two solar eclipses ago, and then this last solar eclipse, a wave of new of people awakening is coming, and so my flyby high friend, she texts me. She goes, "What ocean is the largest in the world?" And I knew immediately what she was doing, because for me it had always been the Atlantic Ocean. Because I'm not even talking about whether the Earth is a globe or not. But I was literally spinning the world globe growing up, and I would see if I could have it land exactly where there's no land masses showing.
Right.
Um, and so that's an anchor memory for me,
Yep.
because at that time,
That was the biggest
uh,
space to grab, was the Atlantic.
right,
Gotcha.
right. And so, but then with the Mandela effect, now it's not.
That all could be
And there's
from
so,
South America alone moving over, taking up all that space, and then making space on the other side. Just that alone would cause
mhm.
quite a bit of that, you know?
Yeah, there's so many geographical changes, and so she and her husband are just so we're just confused by that. And then I told her about a lot of my other geographical changes, and so they're looking it up, and so they're blown away. So even though she was open to, well, she was initially one that I turned to because of the flyby high experience. um she was one of the first people that I called and said, "Are you familiar with the Mandela effect?" And she laughed. I love her laugh. And she said, "I was wondering when you were going to call about that." So at the very beginning, she was open to it, and then just stuff happened. I don't know if she wants to be public about it, but stuff happened. So I do believe when we go under anesthesia, we end up awake in a different wave of the ocean. And so she was no longer remembering the Mandela. She'll talk about it and she's open to it, but she wasn't in my world anymore, and now she's here again. So
Isn't
she's
that
one
wild?
to also come. Yeah.
Yeah. And I told you about how my sister and brother-in-law, have come so far and grown so much. It's just amazing to see. And I feel like we really are holding space for those that will come later,
Yes.
because think of how much
Yes.
easier it is for other people to come here when we've already got this community established of people already seeing it. We didn't, we kind of had to find each other in the beginning.
Right.
You didn't even realize, but I think it's grown to a point now that people will find plenty of resources outside of what Wikipedia says about
And
confabulation or whatever.
even
Hmm.
the terminology, matrix glitch, like that wasn't even
Right.
like or dimensions, just we were too out there. We didn't even know what words to use. Yeah.
And then, you know, in the beginning, when we're freaked out about it and you're trying to tell someone else about it, they're going to pick up on that little bit of you feeling freaked out about it. So I always tell
Mm,
people if you can just make it fun, like a cool glitch in the matrix thing, like you were just saying, it's a little more
right.
palatable. It's not like the world's, some people will present it like, did you hear CERN opened a black hole and sucked us into another reality? You know what I mean? You're like, wait, what? It's just too
Right.
much, But if you can just say, this is a weird logo that's changed, they call it the Mandela Effect. It happens with a lot of the approach can be so huge. Just the way
Yeah.
you keep it lighthearted and fun and cool matrix glitch opposed to CERN ripping the fabric of reality apart. It's
Right.
like night and day.
Like the movies, the Mandela Effect movie, I loved it. I loved all the Easter eggs and like the bookend of the kid holding Curious George stuffed animal, one via the tail, and then of course one where there is no tail. But so that was I love that movie. It made it more real. And then his experiencing his emotions through the process. But I didn't like that it was all explained away by some evil other force, the CERN or whatever. It's just I feel it's more than that.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's not scary. The movie that I like the best is the movie Yesterday.
Oh, I was thinking the
Uh,
same thing as soon as you said like the best. I'm like, mine would probably be Yesterday. Because, like when that group found him, I don't know, I could just relate with so many little aspects of that movie, you know?
yes,
Yeah, so I totally recommend that to anybody who hasn't seen it. It's pretty cool.
and the end. Do you remember the ending of that
Oh,
movie
yeah, it showed that
where
another
he,
timeline could be a much better timeline.
mhm.
I don't want to
And the
ruin it for
message is
anybody, but
no, I don't want to either, but the message is still the same, and that's the conclusion that I finally, it's been a few years now, but I finally reached. It took
hmm
so long to get to that point. Um, while we're here playing, oh, I'm getting shivers, just
and I think
love,
that
love, love,
main
love,
that
love,
that
love.
main ending part you were talking about just shows how sometimes the choice that doesn't seem like it would be the best choice is actually the perfect choice. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Right,
because a lot of times we
right,
get so caught up in our job or whatever it is we're doing in life that we miss life. We
right.
miss the relationships and all that because we were too busy doing. So I like that
Well,
like message in the end because it was like, wow, he got to enjoy the thing we thought that was, you know what I'm saying? And it's, I don't know.
right. And I totally got lost in the Mandela effect. I was totally immersed in it. And I sound like one of those religious groups knocking at the door going, "Hey, have you heard of that?" And I was totally one of them. "Hey, have you heard about the Mandela effect?" And then trying to convince and convert and but I was so lost. Ironically, those people are lost.
hmm
And for sorry, that sounds judgmental, but I feel like I was lost in the immersion of it, forgetting, oh, now that I get it, no matter where I am, no matter when I am, no matter who or what I am, enjoy life, bliss, calm or exciting, love. And the thing is, I'm a little bit different than the new agers. I don't think that everything is love. I I think everything is action and consequences, which leads to, yeah, I prefer a loving uh Orpheum,
Yeah.
you know. But
But I feel like we're the ones putting the bullies in here, somehow, some way. Like we've created this game to come play in. Just because it plays out in a fractal sort of way when we're little kids,
right,
just letting our mind run free, playing in the dirt. I mean, even with cars, I'd play with my Hot Wheels. There'd always be a cop chase or something. You know what I mean? We just love
yeah,
the duality of this realm for some reason, and we get sucked into that whole this or that.
okay.
You know?
So because you brought up the car and the bullies. I mean, I said bullies, but okay. So I just don't want to give any names. I and this other person identified someone on a CC camera, and it turns out that we didn't know it at the time, but that they were a wanted fugitive. And then the crime that was committed, anyhow, then my fear, because I figured out, oh, this person that was in our lives, um, oh, it all made sense. I'm like, oh, his circle of friends, oh, oh,
Just
oh,
all clicked, yeah.
oh, was, and okay, so he was put in jail, but what about his circle of friends? We didn't see anybody else on the CC camera, so we did not identify anybody else, but they don't know that I don't know that. I don't know. So I lived in fear. And so whatever, my own script writer put me in this action film, and I was being followed, and I thought I was being followed, and then I was being followed, and then whenever I drove I was always being followed because that's what I wrote. And um and I it was very scary, okay, but the reason why I'm laughing is because one time there's a car chase, and of course it's a convertible, always a convertible in movies as well, so you can see the
Right.
character, and he's bald-headed white man, very just very distinct, thin, built, but like long head, and I just had enough of it. And part of me also believed more and more that we script our own realities, whether collectively or individually, whatever, that's debatable. But and so I just I peeled out of the he followed me to the parking lot. I peeled from there, and then I mean, I'm normally a very safe, I was not driving safely. And then all of a sudden, there were line of cars parked on the side of the road. And so I quickly slid my car in to one of the side slots. And so the bad guy uh, drove ahead of me, but slowed down, and he parked a few in front of me. And then he gets out of the car, faces, turns and faces me. I'm still sitting in my car, adrenaline, but I was ready to just deal with it. And his hip leans into the car. He crosses his arms, and of course he's wearing sunglasses, and and he smiles. And as he was doing that, I was also thinking, I really do think that this is a play. I really think I'm making this guy up. Just everything just looks so ridiculously movie like. And while I was thinking that is when he smiled. He didn't, and he just stood there, and nothing happened. He saw me, I saw him, and I've been fine since. Nobody's following me. Nope, there are no bad guys unless I want there to be.
That's
Which is
wild.
why I think also because of my childhood experiences, I ended up picking a man like my father. And then uh, not that I date a lot, but the one guy that I dated was a wanted fugitive. Maybe connected to that other story or not. I don't know.
But
But I didn't know. But
it
I
at
keep,
least like made you consider that possibly you weren't targeted. Maybe you were just playing out
right.
this script, or maybe you were chosen to play this role. You know what I mean? Instead of being targeted,
I don't
that's a good
know.
way
I,
of
I
looking at it.
feel like I feel like when we were new to the Mandela effect, that was a script being offered to our masses. Our masses were collected were funneled into a very large group, online group. And then there were stories of, oh, well, shouldn't talk about this, shouldn't make that because we'll be targeted. And then just so many people experienced really, they didn't speak up and then we're experiencing that. And looking back, I'm like, oh, I see what was happening. That was provided for them so that they did believe it enough to experience it. So we can pull back further from that and go, our whole political systems like that, our whole different country cultures are like that. So, you know,
But I think for anybody new coming into this and freaking out at the way the people around you respond to it, I think
yeah,
if they don't seem like they're into it or interested, it's okay to just let them be, and they'll come around. I've had a lot of people that ended up coming around. Some haven't, but other people, like my wife, certainly has come around. She would get aggravate when I bring it up, and now she'll bring me something from the Facebook Mandela Effect group and stuff like that. So I just didn't pester her about it. When I saw it kind of aggravated her, I just kind of left her alone about it and went and found people that did enjoy talking about it, like you. You know what I mean?
yes,
And
yes,
and it feels better anyway. And then I'm not bothering someone that doesn't want to hear about it. So I think that's kind of an important part, is to feel like, to realize that you don't have to be afraid when people don't see it. They might come around in the future, but it really is for you, and it really is your own journey. Even like all
right,
of us within the community, we all have our own list of Mandela effects. I don't think any of us have a perfect matching list, because it
right,
really is a very subjective reality and experience. So, where like I didn't see the traffic lights, for instance, I know others have, and I totally believe that. The traffic, the
right,
colors being swapped on there. You know,
right. Yeah, for me, red has always been and is still
on
uh,
top. Yeah.
on top. Um, and then Harvey 428 pointed out, he was also a calm voice for me. And he said, the devil's not after us, because if they wanted, or aliens, if they wanted to hurt us, they would make the definition of red be go instead of stop. And so there's nothing there to hurt us
Right. Or
from
open
my
up a hole
experience.
underneath us and drop us into hell, right? I mean, if you can
Right,
change reality and you're out to get us, you'd be doing more than changing a letter and chopping off half of a T in the logo. Just, they're little hints. I feel like, just like you were talking
yeah,
about with Angela and Christopher, and them chuckling about, like, will they notice it? How long is it going to take for them to notice this one? And just
right,
making it a game, so you're not ever forced to see it. So those coming into it
yeah,
have to realize, like, it's a gift when you see it. And some people aren't going to see it, or they'll just see it and then say, oh, well, I must have been mistaken. I've actually been in each one of those little places for a while. So, like, I spent a whole
yeah,
year of seeing it happening, but I didn't really get it. I was stuck in that cognitive dissonance thing. I thought there just must be something in my brain rather than reality. I thought, because memories are bad, I know how faulty they can be. So I just kept thinking, maybe I'm mistaken, maybe I'm mistaken. But when the thinker thing happened, I went to a whole different level. So I remember people coming to me all excited during that one year when I saw it happening. I was Ubering at the time, and you'd have one person out of a group of three or four that's excited about it, and everybody else is kind of rolling their eyes or whatever. And as the driver, I'm like, yeah, I remember that, and then they're so excited that I know about the Mandela effect, so that just opens
right.
the door, and then they sit there talking about it, and everyone else is kind of like, oh god, not the Mandela effect. But I didn't realize it at that time. You know what I mean? I didn't realize any of that until I really woke up to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the explaining it away, I spent many years doing that. But like the Monopoly Man, to get back to that, is Helen from the UK. Okay, so the reason that explanation that everybody gives here is, oh, you're just confusing the Monopoly Man having a monocle because of Mr. Peanuts.
Right.
Um,
That's so ridiculous.
and but the thing is, Helen said they don't have that in the UK. So
Yeah.
how is she confusing that?
Right.
you know, so that, um,
Well, they did that with
but
the Mama
I
and Papa song, the California Dream, and I meant to bring that up earlier when you were talking about seeing their
yes,
mouth. That happened to me with California Dream, and the same way you were talking about the Beatles, to see their mouth say "pretend to pray" clearly,
right.
saying "pretend to pray." And I remember, like my mom wouldn't have liked. She was so religious, she wouldn't have even liked that song had they been saying "pretend" the
Okay,
whole
so
time.
that makes me think that we're in a, it's reflecting our, it's a clue for humanity, and that's reflecting. So just like what would you do or what would you think, both are bad actually, both are negative. Um, the we used to, it's that song, the original song, I believe, original to me, was oh, something's going wrong and I began to pray. But now we're living in a reality where people go through the motions of putting their hands together to pray and, oh, I'll pray for you, but they never
Really put their
spend
intention
they
in it.
don't real intention.
Yeah.
They're just going through the motions, and so pretend to pray. That's reflecting of where our society is. So I do feel like they're clues.
Yeah, like little revelations of truth. That's what I always kind of thought. Like there's
Hmm.
some truth to be discovered about it, even if it seems negative in a way. It's like try to figure out if it's telling you something different because and the reason I brought up that song is because Karen Carpenter has covered two different songs that got Mandela. I can't remember what the other one is right away, but it was the Mamas and the Papas one that Carpenter's covered, and she does it how we all remember it. I began
Hmm.
to pray. So hers doesn't seem to get affected. So that's strange that you got this one artist that is able to hold in that original version. But I didn't even know she sang that version, right? So people's like, "Oh, you must be confused because the Carpenter sang began to
Right.
pray instead of pretend." But I was like, I didn't even know that
I
version of it. I only knew the
and maybe that's why it wasn't changed, because you didn't know. Do you know what I mean?
right. Did you know that version?
I no.
Oh,
And
okay.
also I did not know that Joe Cocker covered What Would You Do? I
Wow.
don't
I
I
knew it
don't
from the
remember it, so.
the the show, the Living Years, the Wonder Years. Well, it was the opening song for the Wonder Years show. So a lot of people know it from that
Oh,
version. So a lot of people, it's going to be, if they watch that show, it's going to be hard for them to remember the Beatles version, probably.
right. So in the TV show Wonder Years, it was a Joe Cocker version.
Yeah.
That was the, oh, okay.
Hmm.
I didn't know that.
So I've actually heard that one more, than the Beatles
Mm,
version. But I know for a lot of other people, it was the other way around. If they didn't watch that show.
right.
But then, not,
Yeah,
one way isn't right and one way's wrong either. That's the important part about us
exactly.
bringing out, the fact that we can experience things differently. One way's not right and one way's wrong. It might not align with current history, but your experience is completely valid. If you remember something and
Right.
you can no longer prove it's the way you remember it, that doesn't mean anything. That reality is false to you. That memory is very real.
Right. Yeah, don't gaslight yourself. I also thought I like to look at words, like when I have come to realize it's real eyes. Um, something, I'll see it with my real eye versus any, but the word aware, once we become aware and we can steer better, then we can go to the where that we want. We could go to the where of where we're aware.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, totally. I love the words that all the words that are hidden right in plain sight.
Right.
Yeah. That's
Like
awesome.
awake. Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
let's plan on doing this again for anybody that's new coming. They just want to have a place to go, and please leave comments below with your experiences or anything that you want to open up to and connect with people. That's a great way to start because I know a lot of people are kind of shy at first about kind of putting themselves out there, but leaving a comment's a great way to sort of move in that direction of experiencing this divine gathering. Because ultimately, when I look at how fruitful this has been, I've gotten so much fruit from the Mandela Effect experience, as far as like it being a fruitful experience where I've grown, I've met a lot of great people, a lot of great connections. So I really think it's our perspective. And though it might be rough and you go through a lot of emotional turmoil and weird stuff with people not acting themselves or whatever it is, ultimately, I just think keeping a positive attitude towards it is so much more helpful. Oh, I want to bring on another one. I wore this shirt. Look now.
I only see half of you.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Well,
on
the
my
other
phone.
the other people can see it. It's a yin yang. So the other day you made me realize I didn't realize that it had been Mandela affected. The G got taken out because it's technically in this
You know,
reality yin yang. But I
well,
do
it's not
remember the yin
balanced.
yang. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me it was Ying, and it was balanced. And then we're in a reality where it's Ying, So I was talking to House of Beloved and she goes, "What are you talking about? It's always been Yinyan for her."
Oh my
So
gosh. So it's
yeah,
balanced, but
yeah,
they lost the G's. The GG,
right.
the good game, right?
I guess. But yeah, that's a good shirt. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Well, we'll come back and talk it
Thank you
some
so
more.
much,
Is there anything else you want to say before this? Do you, Mama Jen on TikTok?
Mama Jen. Yeah. I want to thank you because the way I think, the way I speak, the way I experience life, I feel like I'm just this doodler and I go and scribble everywhere, and hopefully you're able to rein me in and guide me to where I'm making sense, because I keep interrupting myself, and so I don't even know if I finished sharing because I keep sharing more and more and more. But that's what's happened. I don't want to be victimy. That's what's happened to me. No, that's what's happened, is that I'm so multifaceted now. I'm aware of being multifaceted, that I'm able to experience various shards of glass in my kaleidoscope instead of just one.
Yeah.
So
I
I
love
love
that. That's
you.
actually I love you too. That's actually one of the Gnostic texts. There's a scripture from Jesus that didn't make it in our Bible, of course, and you'll see why in a moment, where his disciples were asking him what is truth. And Jesus said, "Truth is like a diamond. God is a diamond with many faces." So that goes
Mhm.
right along with what you're saying. And if we're created in the image of God, just like you just said, you just describe what God is, and that God is within each and every one of us. And it's like we're becoming more and more of that, and just realizing that, like you were saying.
Right,
All right. So I
right.
appreciate you. I love you so much, Jen. I'm so glad you really made a huge recovery. I was worried about you for a while, and I'm so glad to
Yeah, I'm back.
be here talking with you again about the Mandela effect, like the good old days.
I love you.
I love you too.
Hugs to your wife, because you were fortunate to have a partner during that WTF phase.
I was just telling her yesterday. That's so funny you said that. I just told her yesterday. It was like because like I bounced around in different religions and denominations and stuff. I'm like, you can totally tell, you were the perfect wife to go through this journey with me, because I never had to really face resistance from you. You just kind of like whatever,
Right.
just kind of went along with it or whatever. But some people that are really ingrained in their own religion, it would have been a completely different experience. So I can really see how it
Yeah.
lined up for me to travel my journey without having that resistance within the home. I know everybody doesn't have it that way. I've heard plenty of stories.
Right.
So I'm thankful for
Right.
that. So you're right. I think there's a lot to appreciate about how everything's unfolding, and although it might be difficult in some areas, I really think we're strong enough to handle it, or it wouldn't be happening.
Right.
And it helps having each other, right?
Yes, for sure.
Love you so
Love
much,
you.
Jen. Love you guys out there. We love you, and come talk to us again.
Bye, everyone. Yay.